It is like the prophet Taylor Swift foretold. August actually did slip away into a moment in time. The thing is, it doesn't feel like just a moment in time. I feel like it's a year ago since I sat down and did this. Give me a moment to get my bearings back, please. I just got back from a trip around the UK 2 days ago. I brought COVID back home with me, so that's how I'm doing. I'm fine, but like, it is kind of annoying. I'll talk about that more later because it will tie in with the books that I read. What I will say, on this trip, I bought a lot of books. Because that's what I do on trips. I buy books as souvenirs, as if I couldn't possibly buy them at home. That's what happened. I bought 13 books. I will show them to you when I'm done discussing the books that I read this month, which is only 6 books this time. That's half of what I read last month, and it's been better on my brain, I think. I didn't even finish one of them, so yeah. The first book I read this month was Amalia by Claudia de Brij, which is a Dutch book about the Dutch crown princess. This book was written because apparently it's a tradition for the Dutch crown people to have a book written about them when they turn 18. They did this for her dad and they did this for his mother. That's why the tradition started. It's really only 2 people, but whatever. It's 3 now. In case you are wondering what an 18-year-old could possibly have to share with the world that warrants having a book written about them, so does Amalia. In the beginning of it, she's not really sure about like what she wants to say to the world, to the country, I guess. Nobody else is reading this. The author, who is, by the way, the Dutch lesbian Jesus, she's wonderful. She's a comedian. She's is she an actor? I don't know, but she is a writer. I have one of her books here. I haven't read it though. She kind of took the Evelyn Hugo approach of just writing about the interviews that she did as they were happening, which I thought was fun. They gave her a lot of freedom with like whatever she wanted to write about and whatever Amalia wanted to talk about. I thought it was a very endearing look on a girl's life. No matter what you think about the royals or any monarchy or whatever, like we all have our opinions on it, but at the end of the day, no one can deny that this girl has one of the most interesting lives of anyone in this country, at least for sure. I thought it was very interesting to read about. She does indeed not have anything super special to say, and a lot of it feels like she has been trained to speak in that manner, but she does seem quite genuine and sweet. Yeah, it just made me appreciate her a lot, and I think as crown people go, we kind of hit the jackpot with this one. Whether or not the monarchy still exists by the time it's her turn, which she actually also has commentary on. I wish there had been more on that in there, but she says she will be fine either way, and I think that's such a gracious answer. I was very endeared by her in general. I like this book. I gave it 4 stars, I think. These books were all from the library, by the way, so I don't have them, but the next book that I read was Losing the Plot by Derek Owosu. This is a book about a man who writes about his mother's migration to the UK from, I'm not sure if it was Ghana or Nigeria, but he writes about that in kind of lyrical prose, mostly kind of an experimental kind of thing. And then in the footnotes, he adds a bit of a more personal notes to it, but the footnotes, they don't really have anything to do with the text itself. And every time there was one, it kind of took me out of it. And the prose in the first place was really hard for me to focus on for some reason. I didn't really like this book. The format and everything was something that I should have liked in theory, but I just didn't gel with the writing at all. None of it stuck with me. I think it was a bit vague in general, but I just couldn't focus on it at all. So yeah, that was not a banger, sadly. Then the next book I read was The Department of Speculation by Jenny Offil, which was exactly my kind of thing. It was so up my alley. I compare people to Maggie Nelson so much. I think at this point I should just give that kind of genre another name, of people writing things that seem autobiographical. Maybe they aren't. I think this one was a novel, I'm pretty sure. Maybe it's not, actually. I'm not sure about that. Anyway, I should say what the book is about. It's kind of a portrait of a marriage from the moment that these 2 people meet to it kind of sort of falling apart a little bit and everything that happens in between, but it's told in like really short, I don't know if I would call them vignettes. They're just like very small parts, and they're like quotes by other people, by scientists and poets. You know, that kind of writing that's just like a bunch of stuff thrown together in one book and told in like very small, beautiful chunks of prose. That is my shit, and that's what this book was, and I loved it very much. If you like Maggie Nelson, if you like The Friend by Sigrid Nunez, if you liked The End We Start From, which I'm not sure anyone besides me has read on here, but if you like Maggie Nelson, then you should read The End We Start From. Yeah, that kind of book. I just loved it. Actually, the first book I started reading this month, I just remembered, was The Story of a New Name by Elena Ferrante. I didn't like it. I liked My Brilliant Friend, but I only really liked it because of the little gay moments that were sprinkled in between. Like the friendship between Lena, what were their names? Lila and Lena. Those were their names. The friendship between them, that was the most interesting thing. Like the way that they cared about each other, the way that Lila was clearly in love with Lenu the whole time, in that book at least. Because in the next book, Lila is just annoyed with Lenu the entire time. Wait, Lenu was, why are their names so similar? That wasn't necessary. Lenu was annoyed with Lila the whole time because Lila was being, to be fair, she was being annoying, but she was also being mentally ill, and I feel like as her best friend, Lenu should have understood that and still have been having gay feelings for her, because she was just being cool and sexy and smart, and I don't understand why Lenu pretended that she was just being annoying, and it got on my nerves, and I didn't care about any of the other people in this book, which is like, these books are kind of like a soap series where there's a lot of other characters that are being talked about constantly, and if you don't care about them, it's hard to focus on them, it's hard to care, and I just decided that it wasn't worth it. I did read the ending though. I want to know if it gets gayer, but it didn't get gayer, and yeah, I decided to just give up. It wasn't worth my time anymore. So then I went on my trip. I went to London to go see Boy Genius. Because why else would you go to London? Am I right? I've went to London for other people. Taylor Swift and Jodie Comer. Anyway, when I go on vacation, I like to read a book about or from the place where I'm going so that I can really experience the setting, right? For London, I didn't really have a plan. I didn't feel like reading anything about London. The thing is, I don't like London very much. I think it's way too big. It's just, it's not my vibe. I don't like it. So I wasn't really looking for any new books about London. I didn't really care. But then the week before, I found a book in a free little library, and it was Fate. It was NW by Zadie Smith. I didn't realize this at the time. Well, it does say at the back of it that it's about Londoners, so I was like, oh, okay, cool, I'll bring that to London. I didn't really realize that NW stood for Northwest, and what I also didn't realize was that I was staying in Northwest. Actually, I was staying in Notting Hill, and they say in this book that it's not Northwest, but like all the subway, no, metro, no, underground, tube, all the tube stops and stuff, I was almost, like, I was at the edge of where this book is. So that was really cool. It felt very immersive. I had only ever read one Zadie Smith book before, which was Intimations, which I guess isn't really a book. I didn't really love that one because I didn't feel like it had a lot to say, and I felt like her sentences were too long. I didn't really like her writing. In this one, she's doing different things because this book consists of multiple parts. I thought it was going to be 4 parts, but I think it ended up actually being 6 parts, but they were all written quite differently. I did like the style of this book very much because it felt like I was watching a movie, and I don't get that very often, but in this case it was so descriptive but still captured the vibe of everything so well that I could really see it playing out in front of my face. It might have helped that I was at the place where it takes place at. This book is about Londoners. It's about 4 different people. I definitely have favorites. Leah and Natalie, who are best friends since childhood, they were the most interesting to me, and the other parts I didn't really care that much for. I feel like the plot for me just, I mean, there wasn't a lot of plot, but I feel like there could have been even less plot and it would have worked better, or there could have been more plot and it would have worked better. But it was good. I gave it a 7.5 out of 10, nearing an 8, because I thought it was good, but I think I would have preferred if it was just about Leah and Natalie. But it was very good. It's very much about never being able to escape where you come from, and how where you come from will always be a part of you in some way, shape or form, and you can't run away from it, no matter how hard you try. Definitely a good start to Zadie Smith, I think. I'm actually a bit of a liar, by the way, because I finished that book today. I hadn't actually finished it by the time I left London, but I left London to go to Liverpool, and I had another book for Liverpool, so I had to stop reading it, put it on hold, and then I finished it today, and it's not August anymore, but if you won't tell, I won't tell. In Liverpool, and this time I did come prepared, I did actually look up a book that takes place at least somewhat in Liverpool that I would like, and it was Cemeteries by the one and only Jeanette Winterson. In case you hadn't, I very strategically put my Jeanette Winterson collection out here so you could see it. Yeah, and we're adding one to the stack today, and it's this one. I actually finished this yesterday. This is about, is it about a throuple? No, it's more like a love triangle, but it does go all of the ways. So it's a full triangle, not just an A-frame. It's about a man who has an affair with a younger woman, and then the younger woman meets his wife and starts an affair with her. We love to see it. However, this book is kind of crazy. There's a lot of stuff in here about physics that I could not understand for the life of me, but I kind of turned off my brain for that because I don't need to know all that. That's the thing, I just don't. There was one thing missing, I guess, from Jeanette's repertoire so far. In none of these books, I had encountered even an ounce of cannibalism. This one provided. I didn't know I needed it. I'm actually still not sure if I did need it, but I got it. This one does have some of the magical realism fun that Jeanette Winterson sometimes does. It's not as prominently there as in like Sexing the Cherry or The Passion. It's just like a couple of sprinkles. Backstories of all of these characters, like where they come from, are pretty fun. And I actually did read the part that takes place on the Mersey in Liverpool. I read that while I was sitting on the pierhead on the docks, and that was fun, looking out of the Mersey while reading about the Mersey, things happening on the Mersey. But it doesn't actually take place that much in Liverpool. It mostly takes place in New York and in just like Jeanette Winterson's brain, which is a place where I love to be. But I will say this is not my favorite Jeanette Winterson of all time. I'll keep you posted on that though. And yes, I've read all these. Then into the book haul, which I will take you over the trip a bit more, I guess. If you want to see like details of my trip, I'm not sharing my life with you, but like I posted some pictures of myself on my Bookstagram, which I have never done before. It was kind of like a face reveal, even though this exists. I spent some time in London with Sally and Alex, whom some of you might know from around here. They're lovely. I love them. I miss them very much. We did go book shopping together, which is very much fun because usually when I go book shopping, I'm just pointing out every single book I've read to the person I'm with, and they're just like, okay, cool. But in this case, we were all doing that and having opinions and heated arguments about all of these books, and it was great. Our first stop, and this was kind of basic, but I needed a book that I knew Waterstones would have, and I wasn't sure if any other place would have it. So we went to Waterstones Piccadilly because that's the biggest one, and I figured that if anyone had it, they would have it. And I've talked about this book before. It's in my July wrap-up because it's a new favorite and I needed it in my possession on my favorite shelf. I'm going to put it that later. I'm so excited about that. It's A Word for Women is Wilderness. I've already annotated it. Very excited to finally own this. This is so far my favorite book of the year. If you want to see my thoughts on it, please watch the July wrap-up because I have lost my mind over it. We love to see it. Anyway, then we went to, wait, was this on the same day? I don't think it was. Anyway, doesn't matter. We went to Gaysuit, whom we all know and love, I guess, and I bought 3 books there. The first one I picked off the shelf was this one, After Sappho, because that sounds like something that I need to read and possess and annotate the shit out of. Oh, yeah. It's all about historical lesbians, queer people, just generally, and that is something that I love. I'd actually never seen this cover before. I really like it. We found this at Waterstones and it was signed, and then I was like, but it might be signed at Gaysuit too, and I'd rather buy it there, but then it wasn't signed at Gaysuit, but I still have it, so that's cool. I'm very excited to read this. I haven't heard that much about it. Please let me know if you have read it and if it was good, but I will find out soon myself, so you don't have to tell me all of your opinions, unless they're good. Just don't spoil me. Next one I picked up there was Dogs of Summer, because I remember Ali talking about this book, and I met Ali that morning, but we didn't get to hang out for very long, so I was like, I'm just gonna buy a book so that I can talk to her about it. I don't like this cover as much as the one with the purple on it. I actually do love this picture. This picture is very telling of something. I don't know what yet, but I'm kind of obsessed with the vibes here. Then at Gaysuit, I made Alex buy The Passion by Jeanette Winterson. And because I was being such a great influencer, I figured that they should recommend me a book too. And so we kind of went around, and we're not sure why this was there at Gay is the Word. I think it was on the trans shelf even. If anyone knows why it was there, tell me. But it was Nightcrawling by Lena Motley. Is that her name? Layla Motley, sorry. I don't know how I feel about this cover either. I think I prefer the orange one with the braids. I've been seeing this around and I've been meaning to read it for a long time. I heard that the author is very young, which intrigues me because when I was a kid, I always thought that I would be the youngest author of all time, and I wasn't, clearly. I'm excited to read something by someone who's very young and see if it's like actually good. I mean, it probably is because it's won prizes. Oh, it's actually longlisted for the Booker Prize. I thought it won something. Well, anyway, I'm excited to read this. Those were the only books I bought in London. Then I went to Liverpool. In Liverpool, I didn't have a lot of energy left in my body. So there was one day on which I decided to just go to the bookshops and just do that. And even that was too much for me at that point, but still did it. There's this one really cute bookshop called Read of Liverpool. There is no order to these books. They are just stashed into the shelves, and there's many shelves. So I had to look at every single book to make sure that I wasn't missing like the one book that I was looking for. You know how that goes? I was basically just looking for a Jeanette Winterson book because she's not from Liverpool, she's from Manchester, but like she grew up around that area. So I was like, they have to have some Jeanette Wintersons here. They did. They had The Passion and Sex and the Cherry, I think, but I already have those, so I wasn't going to buy those. I did figure out that that was like the women literature shelf. So I stayed around that one a little bit longer, and I ended up finding this one, Finding the Mother Tree by Suzanne Simard, I don't know. Uncovering the wisdom and intelligence of the forest. If you see my other videos, you'll know that I have lately been a little bit obsessed with like nature, the wilderness, which is why I loved The Word for Women is Wilderness so much. And I've just been dying to read more about that. So when I found this book, I was like, this sounds kind of cool. As bats. So that's cool. And then when I went outside of the shop, I noticed that there was more outside. I found The Accidental by Ellie Smith. Ellie Smith is just an author I want to read more of. There's a picture of a sheep. Can you see that? Would love to see it. There were some more bookshops in Liverpool that were cool, but I couldn't really find anything there. There was a queer bookshop called News from Nowhere, I believe. Went in there to find some Jeanette Winston or anything. Couldn't really find her there either. So instead I just looked at the secondhand books that they had, and I found The Blindfold by Siri Hustvedt, the author of Julian Fleuberets. She loves Siri Hustvedt, and so I figured I should read books by her. So I just got this one without really knowing anything about it. Then I went on a day trip to the lakes where all the poets went to die. Like I said, Taylor Swift rules my life, and I'm not ashamed of it. That was actually a great day. I saw mountains and I cried. She was right. Those Windermere peaks do look like the perfect place to cry. She was serious about that. I get it now. Anyway, it was a day trip on a bus, and we stopped in Grasmere, which is where William Wordsworth is from, and he's also buried there. I did see his grave. Did you know that his wife's name was Fanny? Because that was a silly way to find out about that. But yeah, anyway, we stopped in Grasmere for like 45 minutes to queue for some gingerbread. Apparently when you're there, you have to buy gingerbread. Admittedly, it was very good gingerbread, but there was also a bookshop there. I asked the very nice man behind the counter for a collection of poetry that wasn't just William Wordsworth, but also other people, and he handed me this one, Companions of Nature. This is actually a quote from Dorothy Wordsworth. She's also in here. There's actually multiple female poets in here. I've read the first 3 poems in here. They were written in the Cumbrian dialect. I don't know what was going on. I'm sure they were great though. I just felt like this would be the most on-brand souvenir for me, having gone to the lakes where all the poets went to die. So I had to have that. But then I thought it was kind of cheap. I was like, I'm gonna spend money here. I'm gonna do it. And he had this whole section of nature writing, and so much of it was written by women and women of color. I have been looking for books exactly like that, like this one. And the one I found is one I've been looking for. I actually found multiple ones. I kind of wanted to read them all, but I just went with the one that I've been looking for a very long time. And it's Braiding Sweetgrass because everybody and their mom on this corner of BookTube has talked about this. And so I want to read it too. And now I will. I love that these are the same edition. They're gonna look lovely together one day. Then after I went to Liverpool, I went to Manchester, where I, to be honest, didn't do very much because that's where I found out I had COVID. Spending a day in a hotel room is an experience too. I did spend one day going out to bookshops because I had to find a Jeanette Winston book in the place that she was born. Actually, I realized the day I arrived was Jeanette's birthday, and I was also still reading Cemeteries, and it was her birthplace. I didn't aim for that, but it did happen. Anyways, I went out to find some books. Weirdly, it was a Tuesday and most of the bookshops were closed, which is weird. A lot of things were closed actually. It wasn't even a special day, it was just Tuesday and things were just closed on Tuesday. I don't know why. But anyway, what was open was the Oxfam shop. Any place that has secondhand books, I have to compulsively go to see if they might have a book that I want to read. And they did, actually. They had Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. And I also found there, which is great, another Ellie Smith, Autumn, which is actually the next one in the seasonal quartet that I wanted to read. So it was fate. It looks really good still. I went to some other bookstores in Manchester. One of them was so much more cafe than bookstore that I had to get out. I just wanted to browse books and that wasn't really possible there. One of them was a queer bookshop, a lovely place to hang out, but all of the books were ordered in order of title, which was confusing to me. So I also had to look at all of the titles because I don't know all the titles of Jeanette Winston's books, okay? I don't even know all of her books. I just look for the W and I look for her books. That's what I do. But now I had to look at all of the books and they didn't have any that I don't already have. At this point, it's starting to become understandable that shops don't have the books that I'm looking for anymore. In the end, I had to resort to Waterstones, and it wasn't even a queue of Waterstones. They did have one that I don't already have, The Daylight Gate. I think this is more of like an actual like gothic novel, which is different for her. Don't really know what it's about, don't really care to know what it's about. Best way to go into a Jeanette Winston novel for me is blind. Don't question it, just go with it. And then I didn't want to leave with just one book. So I also looked at what they had by Simone de Beauvoir, and I saw that they had the full edition of The Second Sex, which is like, I don't want to say how many pages that is because I don't know, but it's more than 500. And I was like, I will never read that. But then I saw that they had a small edition with extracts from The Second Sex, presumably the most important ones. It's time to get educated, I guess. Yeah, so those were the 13 books that I bought while I was in England, UK. Yeah, this was my first time in England that I wasn't just in London, although I have spent one day in Canterbury before. I don't remember anything about it though. My favorite part was definitely Liverpool. I really loved Liverpool. I didn't see that coming, but that city is such a vibe. It's kind of underrated, I think. I would definitely go back there. Manchester, it looked cool. I didn't see much of it though, but from what I've seen, it didn't really look like any other city I've ever been before. It's so modern yet so old at the same time. It's like a very hipstery kind of place, but like in a good way. I don't know, it felt cool. Also, it had just been Manchester Pride, so there was a lot of gay shit going on and I always appreciate that. So yeah, that's what happened in my August. How was you guys' August? Was it good? Did you read any good books? Did you go on any trips? Do you have any adventures? Tell me about it. And I'll see you next time in September. It is September. I'll see you in October. All right, bye. Did I say I bought 13 books, by the way? The impact that Taylor Swift has on me is scary at this point. Troubling.